Hello there GHL fans, welcome to your GHL update for March 13th, 2016. Let's get you up to date on the scores from the past couple weeks. The Erie Otters and Colorado Eagles faced off in a game that was predicted to be all Eagles. At the end of the first period, the Eagles were on top as Brett Olson scored to make it 1-0. In the second period, it was more of a goaltender's duel than anything else. Erie's Oscar Dansk and Colorado's Martin Jones were stellar, keeping the score 1-0 Colorado. The goaltenders continued their battle in the third period, and the Eagles held on to win the game 1-0. The Halifax Mooseheads and Philadelphia Blazers were locked in an epic showdown, with the Blazers winning 7-4. The Edmonton Oil Kings and the Pittsburgh Penguins faced off in a game that had the same odds as Erie and Colorado. Sidney Crosby and Mario Lemieux scored to make it 3-0 Pittsburgh at the end of the first. Early in the second period, Mario Lemieux would score a third goal, recording his first ever GHL hat-trick. Late in the second, Edmonton tried to come back, but Pittsburgh kept it a 2-goal game to end the period. The Pens would not look back, finishing the game with an 11-5 rout of the Oil Kings. On to the European Conference, where Energy Karlovy Vary and Team Poland were locked in a scoring battle. Karlovy Vary would have a 1-goal lead at the end of the first period. Karlovy Vary would add another goal to end the second period. Poland would tally another 2 goals, but Karlovy Vary got the upper hand in this one, taking the game 6-4. The European Conference leader HPK Hämeenlinna faced off against Team Quick Change. The game got out of hand early, with HPK up 5-0 at the end of the first period. In the second period, Team Quick Change scored 2 goals, but it wasn't enough to shift the momentum, as HPK played a physical game to end the period. Team Quick Change tried to shift the momentum in the third period with 4 more goals, but all it did was open up HPK's offense. HPK would win the game 10-6. The Grand Rapids Griffins and HRCA Inline Hockey were locked in a very physical game early. The score was tied at 1 at the end of the first period. At the end of the second period, both teams would add 2 goals, keeping the score tied at period's end. The game was tied at 5 late in the third period, but Nigel Parker, bottom right, scored with 0.7 seconds left to win the game 6-5 for HRCA Inline Hockey. The Quebec Nordiques and the Rocky Mountain Rage played in a very one-sided affair. Chip Dunleavy scored the only goal for the Rage as Quebec ended the first period 7-1. In the second period, Quebec increased their lead substantially, and they ended the period 16-1. The Nordiques would win the game 18-1, setting a new GHL record for highest scoring game. Going back to the European Conference, Rogel BK and Team Austria faced off in a critical standings game, with both teams hoping to win to stay in the wildcard hunt. The game was tied at 2 at the end of the first period. Austria would resort to a more physical game, and it worked to extreme efficiency. They ended the second period up 5-2. Austria would take the game 8-5, staying in the wildcard hunt. The Norfolk Admirals played a very chippy game against SC Bern. However, their aggression didn't pay off, as penalties would prevent them from scoring. SC Bern closed the first period with a 2-0 lead behind the stellar goaltending of Marco Buehrer. In the second period, the Admirals found out that speed and finesse would help them overcome their European opponent, as they clawed back to tie the game at 2. However, Martin Plus would score for SC Bern late to end the period. Frederick Anderson would stand on his head throughout the third period, giving the Admirals time to tie the game up. This game would go into overtime.
Here we go, folks. The overtime period about to start. The first overtime in the GHL this season. The puck comes loose. Here come the Admirals with the puck now. They're going to dump it to the corner. SC Bern with it now, and they're going to try and score here. An opportunity. That shot never made it on net, and the puck comes loose. Oh, and a big hit there. Maroon circling around. Maroon trying to get a shot on goal, and he can't put it in. Puck coming loose again. And now it's in the Admiral zone, batted down by SC Bern. Now he's got a chance. Here comes Rod Pelly, a shot. Scores! Rod Pelly, the overtime goal!
Rod Pelly's goal would win the game for the Norfolk Admirals as they entered the playoff hunt with the win. Adler Mannheim was looking to continue their hot streak as they traveled to Rimouski to play the Oceanic. However, Adler Mannheim dug themselves in a hole early, and Rimouski would end the first period up 4-1. Rimouski would play a very physical game in the second period, and even though Mannheim scored 3 goals, Rimouski kept their lead at period's end. In the end, Mannheim couldn't generate any kind of offense against the high-flying Oceanic, who would win the game 8-4. The Boston Bruins and the Chicago Wolves would mark a long-awaited comeback for goaltender Krista Pfeffer, who only 8 months earlier was stealing the spotlight as the #1 goalie in the GHL. She signed with the Boston Bruins on December 22, 2015 and was in training camp the same day. However, she had been hospitalized the following morning and was on injured reserve for the next 2 weeks. She would finally come back to play on February 10th in the colors of the Boston Bruins. She would backstop the Bruins to a 3-1 lead at the end of the first period, as Chicago had trouble finding any open holes with which to score. In the second period, the Bruins fell apart after Chicago scored 3 more goals to take a 4-3 lead. One goal in question was highly controversial. Chicago's Phil McRae kicked the puck into the net with the back of his skate. GHL official Brian Pochmara had originally called it no goal. However, he intentionally overturned the call, giving the Chicago Wolves an illegal goal. Pochmara would be suspended 15 games after the game was over for intentionally overturning an illegal call. Boston's Jaromir Jagr would tie the game up at 4 to end the period. But it was clear the Bruins were having trouble, and Krista Pfeffer's unbeaten streak was hanging in the balance. Boston and Chicago would score to tie the game at 5, but Joe Thornton would score late to make it 6-5 Boston. Adam Oates would tack on another Bruins goal to win the game 7-5, keeping Krista Pfeffer's unbeaten streak alive, as well as helping her record her first win in a Bruins uniform. The Rochester Americans and Calgary Hitmen played a somewhat close game in the first period. However, Calgary would score 2 late goals to end the period up 4-2. Rochester would score again to cut Calgary's lead to 1, but from then on it was all Calgary. The second period ended with the Hitmen up 8-3. Rochester scored 2 more goals, but they couldn't shift the momentum. Calgary would take this game 10-5. The Detroit Red Wings and Ostellari Trinec would play a very physical game in the first period, and it was clear that Detroit had the advantage over their European opponent. They would end the first period up 4-0. Ostellari Trinec would score 2 goals in the second, but it still couldn't stop Detroit, who scored 2 more goals to end the period. Detroit kept the momentum in the third period, winning the game 9-4 with some impressive goaltending from Jimmy Howard. The New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins would meet at Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for the 2016 GHL Winter Classic. The Rangers scored first as Pat LaFontaine would find the back of the net on the opening draw. However, the Bruins would score a goal of their own, keeping the game tied at 1 as the first period ended. The second period opened up to lots of scoring. The Rangers would get 2 goals from Pavel Bure, but the Bruins would get a massive offensive rush, ending the second period up 5-3. The Rangers tried to swing the momentum in their favor off a goal by John Moore, but the Bruins wouldn't give in, taking the game 6-4. The New Jersey Devils and the Pittsburgh Penguins were locked in a fierce battle early. The first period would end with both teams tied at 2. Evgeny Malkin would score 2 goals in the second period to give the Pens the lead 4-2. Before the period ended, Pens goaltender Matt Murray, who was signed the previous night, stopped every New Jersey shot on goal. The period would end with the Pens up 4-2. New Jersey would add another goal, but Pittsburgh had sealed the deal, scoring 2 more goals to win the game 6-3. That game also marked a milestone for recently signed forward Brandon Circulien, who scored his first ever GHL goal on an empty net late in the game. The Houston Aeros traveled to Minsk to play Team Belarus. The game was close in the first period, with both teams getting a goal. The second period would see physical hockey as well as some more goals. Belarus broke the tie late in the game to end the period up 3-2. Belarus would keep the momentum in the third, scoring another 3 goals despite being outshot in the period. They would beat Houston 6-4. The Espoo Blues and Tappara would play a close game in the first period. The only goal was scored by Tappara late in the period. Espoo would take a 2-1 lead midway through the second period, but Tappara scored late again to end the period tied at 2. Espoo would take the lead back, but goaltending issues started to plague them, as Tappara would score 4 goals to win the game 6-3. Vitkovice Steel would travel to Paris to play Team France, who were on a hot streak. The hot streak showed as France took a 4-1 lead at the end of the first period. In the second period, Vitkovice Steel would score another goal, but wouldn't score another in the period. French goaltender Chris Huet stopped every shot on goal after that, and France immediately got back to work. The second period would end with the French up 8-2. France would again keep Vitkovice Steel to 1 goal in the third period, as they took the game 9-3. Well, I hope you enjoyed this GHL update, and we'll keep updating you with more news as the season progresses. So, until next time, I'm Mario Ordaz saying so long folks, and stay classy.